Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everyone. Important topic we're going to tackle today. Very impactful, and you will see it in a different light. And I'm going to go right there. I'm going to talk right here. We're talking about suicide. And the suicide rates have been up even in the last couple of years. She deals with people challenged in her practice, and so do her team members at New Beginnings Center up in Massachusetts, where they do some amazing work helping people move their life forward, have realizations. I do believe she had a different realization after experiencing a conversation with somebody, and we're going to dig into that today. She is just wonderful with her empathy and the way she handles things. Our Diamond of the Decade, Sherri Alexandrovich, is back with us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Good. It's a deep topic we're hitting here today.
It is a deep topic. Yeah.
But it comes off the heels of what we talked about last week, which was smiling depression. Yeah. And why don't we redefine that for everyone in case they missed that?
Okay, so what we were talking about last week with the smiling depression is when people are presenting on the outside very differently than how they're feeling on the inside. And you know, one of the biggest challenges that we were talking about last week is that when you see somebody who looks sad or depressed, you're more apt to reach out or to say, "Hey, how you doing?" or do a check-in. But for those of us who are silently suffering on the inside and the outside, we have this smile, we have this presentation where, you know, going to work every day, we're doing our things. It's not necessarily as noticeable. And so really just the importance of not just kindness, but also, you know, checking in with everybody, no matter who they are. And regardless of what our presentation on the outside is, just understanding that everybody on the inside is really going through something traumatic or upsetting, and just the importance of really check-ins.
You said it last time we got together, and sadly I forgot because he was so good at making us smile. Robin Williams. Right. I mean, you said his name, I'm like, oh, yeah, there you go. Smiling depression. So now pivoting over to what you experience in a conversation with somebody connected to law enforcement and all of this. Can you share that?
Yes. So I met this wonderful retired police officer. His name is Bernie Hallams, and him and I were talking last week, and he was doing a podcast called Choir Practice. And so one of the things that we were kind of talking about is just some parallels with mental health, and he does a lot of work with police officers. And so he had sent me a YouTube on a friend of his, Matt Griffin, who wrote a book, The Journey to Midnight. And on their podcast, Matt Griffin had come and talked about his book, The Journey to Midnight. And it was so impactful and so powerful to me that first of all, I just really hadn't expected the enormity of what happened during the podcast. And just so for listeners that might want to go and read this or listen to this podcast to understand it's really powerful, and a lot of really raw topics are brought up. But Matt made such amazing points that I thought would be so important to share on the tail end of what we had talked about last week, which is, you know, the smiling depression. And so the book, The Journey to Midnight, really is about Matt's experience with some loss as a police officer and not being able to save certain individuals, and then having people in his, you know, in the police force that had committed suicide. And he talks pretty openly about that. And, you know, a series of things happen in his own personal life, which he's really very honest about in the podcast and in the book as well, where he reaches a point where he himself is suicidal. And one of the really impactful things that that he talked about is that the misconception of suicidality being for people who are weak. Or, you know, I think people have this perspective that it's an easy way out. And I think one of the things that Matt really powerfully wanted to express and get across was that people with suicidal, you know, the thought of suicidality is they're sacrificing themselves. And that my children they deserve better than to have a father like me. And that personal feeling inside, and how hopeless and desperate somebody must feel that they see suicide as a way of sacrificing themselves for the better of other people. And that for me was like, it was so powerful to hear, and really resonated really strongly for me, because I guess I really hadn't thought about it, at that particular perspective, and the importance of understanding that you just don't know what people are going through every single day. And one of the things he says towards the end of the podcast is, when he was kind of at the 11th hour, and he had chosen midnight at this particular day, and he was in his car and had his gun in his hand, and he had written his note and had his affairs in order, and his friend had called him at, I think he had said it was like 11:14, and the phone had startled him, and he answered, and his friend had said, why don't you come over and have a beer? And they kind of went back and forth, and thankfully he had decided to go. But one of the things he had said was, today's a good day to kill yourself, but so is tomorrow. And that was his mantra for 5 months. And that got him through every single day, where today might be a good day to do it, but so is tomorrow. And just putting it off every day for 5 months, until he was able to then self-reflect and say, today I'm going to do something for myself, or today I'm going to do something more positive. And the book is really about all of his experiences, and it's a powerful podcast. I don't want to give it all away, because I really want to encourage people to definitely listen to it, because I'm not going to do it the same justice that Matt does it when he speaks about his own experience. And and Bernie Helms is just so active in the community as a retired police officer, in helping other police officers who are dealing with this. And it's, they both say it in this podcast, that it's not really geared towards just police officers. It's geared towards just people in general, and how everybody's suffering and having the same experiences. And it's so I just thought it would be really an important topic for today.
Sure.
And I don't know if you have any feedback on that. I know I tend to kind of ramble when we're
no, I mean, it's so important, and getting a different perspective from this police officer. The friend that called him around midnight, was that call it coincidence at that time?
Well, so I believe, from my understanding, it was, but here's the powerful part about this. So the friend who had called him, who ultimately he identifies as, in his book as well, as had saved his life, his name was Benny. So if you rewind back, 21 years, Benny's son, Benny Jr., was 2.5, and Matt Griffin was on call, and it wasn't his area, and he had heard the call come through that there was a 2.5-year-old. I think they had called it Code Gray, I think is what it was. And forgive me if I misrepresented that, but and how he describes it is that he hadn't put two and two together at the location yet, and he had hesitated before he went to the house, and he lived with the guilt of that hesitation, because Benny Jr. ended up not living. And so when he got there, his friend Benny was deployed. He was in the service, and the wife was there with the baby, and she had gone to take a shower. She put on Willy Wonka, and the 2.5-year-old was swinging from the cords of the blinds in the window, and had gotten it wrapped around his neck. And so 911 was dispatched. Matt was the first one that came to the call, cut him down, was trying to resuscitate. And so I can't imagine the enormity of what he was feeling in that moment, to lose any 2.5-year-old, let alone a dear friend of yours, child. And so it's a powerful segment to watch, for sure. And I don't want to get into the descriptions of it, because I don't think we put any warning labels out there before we went live. And so I think it's important that, because they do put some warning labels in this podcast, and prior to watching it, and we didn't. So I want to be mindful of what I'm saying to listeners. But just that he had lived with that for so long. But talk about the world coming full circle, in the universe having plans for us, where the father, Benny, is the one who saves Matt's life.
Right.
Decades later after all of this had happened. And so,
Just that feeling of helplessness when you go to that call, your friend's son, I can't even.
no,
It's,
I can't imagine.
your own child, that's one thing, no words, but
Right.
your life's work is to protect and serve. And now
Mm-hmm.
you show up, and wasn't that his fault or anything like that, but
Right.
to show up
Right.
and to feel helpless that you couldn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And,
And you know what? You're right, Stephen. You hit it right on the head right there. Is that you do this for a living, and it's that helplessness when you can't execute what you've been trained to do. And I think that that's such a powerful message that everybody needs to understand, and not just from police officers' perspectives, but from therapists' perspectives as well. And even when I reflect upon some of my own challenges in my life, I'll tell you one of the hardest things that I have had to accept is the amount of people that I treat, save, help every day. But when there are people that you can't, and there are people in your personal life that you're not able to help or to save or to rescue, and living with that guilt is something that, and I think maybe that's why Matt's podcast had resonated so hard with me, is that just in my own personal life, knowing that I have been in certainly not that level of a situation, but I can identify and have empathy for that, and how heart-wrenching that is, knowing that this is what you're trained to do, and there are still those moments that you can't
yeah.
save or fix or help.
Well, I guess it comes down to you can only control what you can control, and but that doesn't change anything, and
No.
and especially in his case going on that call, and even for you, and especially maybe it hits even closer to home. What do I mean by that? He goes on this call. It's his friend's son. He's connected to it. Not minimizing it, but you go on a call and it's a stranger. You're not as connected. And then your line of work, you become close to the
Right.
people you work to help. You know them better than their friends and family in some regards.
Right.
And, I can't even imagine, when somebody can't cope anymore. But now that we look at it in a different way, where,
Yeah.
some may feel, well, man, the person's weak, put on your big girl pants, man up, whatever it might be, deal with life, blah, blah, blah. No, there's more to it than that, as
Right.
revealed in this story, that you
Right.
think you're better off by not being here. Better off for
and
others.
that really, like I said, that resonated for me, because we do deal a lot with suicidality in the mental health field as well. And you think about the people who they leave behind, or the missed opportunities because they're no longer here to be able to take them, and you go through in your mind over and over and over again, what could I have done differently, what should I have said differently, and maybe if I had an appointment that day, or your mind just races in all of these different avenues on what you could have done differently. And I know for me, I just feel it in my soul that, oh my God, my heart just hurts for people who feel so helpless and so hopeless that they feel like that is all that's left. And I guess just hearing when Matt said that, sacrificing yourself, and wow, that's even more powerful, right? Because you're not just feeling hopeless and helpless and overwhelmed, but you're feeling like, this is what I should do to save or spare the people that I love. And wow, like that was really, that resonated for me pretty powerfully. And it's so hard when we do this every day for a living. And I've only lost one client in my career to an overdose, and I had worked with this individual for almost 9 years, a long time. And you're in therapy with someone for that long, they're not a client anymore. And when you're going through the trenches with them and the struggles with them, and I'll tell you, that was the most difficult funeral I ever attended, hands down, is just, picking that mother up off the floor. And you just think about, what could you have done differently? Was there anything that you missed? And, in the world of the overdose epidemic right now is just so, my God, you just don't know, that one batch that you buy, you don't know what's in it. And it's really just, it's just such a trying time right now.
It truly is. But we look at it in a different way with your story today, where, talk about the ultimate sacrifice that somebody makes, thinking that they're doing those around them a service by not being here, seeing it through their eyes. That's even, it's a complete reverse of what we would have thought.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And you know what? I don't want to end without having the opportunity to say, please, 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 if anybody is thinking that the world is better off without them, my God, that's not true.
Nope.
I would want, if anything comes out of today's podcast, is for people to know that no matter what, there are people who love you and you can make a difference, and people are not better off without you. It doesn't matter if you're homeless. It doesn't matter if you can't afford to feed your children. It doesn't matter if you have made mistakes that are so difficult for you to wake up tomorrow and live with. You can get through that. And there are those of us out here who want to help you and are here to help you. And, the mind plays tricks on us. It really does. It convinces us of things that just are not true. And there are other perspectives and there's other ways of dealing with things and there are other outcomes. And I think that that's just really powerful, that I want people to be able to hear.
Many of us think that we're a burden when we ask for help, but we don't realize that we're helping the person that we ask for help from because they want to help. It makes them feel good, no matter what it is. We don't look at it that way. It's just like, I don't want to bother anybody. I don't want to be the burden. No, look at it in another way. And I look at it this way too. You're at a very low point, but walking into a Starbucks and looking at the person at the counter and saying, thank you for making my coffee. It's really good today. And by the way, your hair looks amazing.
Right.
They may be going through what you're going through, or even worse. We all have a bad day. Worse, you may save their lives just by one comment like that.
Right.
It could just reframe everything right at that moment, and you might not know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you think about the pay it forward, that had gone on for so very long,
right.
And that in itself is such an amazing movement. And there's a movie that's about it, which is an absolutely just such an amazing movie that I've seen in the past. But, I've done that at McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts or wherever you're at, I don't want to pay for the person behind you. And then they just kind of keep it going. And what a cool concept that is, because I've walked into I'm a big dollar store junkie. I like to do crafts and stuff. So I'm at the dollar store one day and I don't know, I was kind of having a little bit of a funky day. I wasn't in a great space. And this guy comes up to me and he's like, I hope you don't mind me saying it, but my God, you have the most beautiful shade of red hair. And I was like, oh, and I just started laughing because it just had so taken me by surprise. And this particular individual who said that to me was dressed in the most bizarre clothing. He was in a bright pink shirt and green pants. And he I don't want to make the assumption that he was homeless, but he certainly looked like he was really struggling. And to go out of his way to say something, the light up on my face was my cheeks hurt. I was smiling. I was like, wow, just the power, like you just said, of that one compliment makes such an impact and such a difference. And we talked about that last week, the power of words, right? The tongue doesn't have any bones, but my God, it is the most vicious, part of our bodies. The damage that we can do with words is just really, it's really impactful. And people need to just really stop and think and make sure that, we're being mindful of what we say, because we don't know what somebody is going through. And we don't know what that one snarky remark could mean for a person who's hanging on by a thread and who is thinking that their families are better off without them. And then you say something that's really awful. And then that just validates to them exactly what they were thinking.
Yeah. And you didn't need to say that. Like, there's never a place for bad things, negative words. There isn't. Just rethink it. But sadly, in the way things are, we are afraid to say those nice things to others. And when somebody says something nice to you, we go on guard. Like, well, what's up? What, this guy trying to pick me up? Like, what's going on here? Wait.
Right.
It's just a nice comment. We're so afraid to do it. And then we process it, judge it, check it out, whatever. And certainly on the pay it forward thing, it's like a few months ago, a woman paid for my coffee at a convenience store. And like, I was floored. Like, I didn't even know what to say. And she goes, "No, I got it. I'm going to take care of it for you." I'm like, and I looked her in the eye and I stopped everything. And I said, "I promise you, I will pay it back times 10. And I waited for the right moment. I was out somewhere, even in a drive-through going through, and I did. Because we all should pay it forward.
Absolutely. And it's a good feeling too, and you're right. We do live in a very untrusting world, and we did a podcast about that a couple weeks ago, right? The coming out of the pandemic and how many people have been scammed and had money stolen from them. And we're just in when we did the epidemic on isolation and loneliness. And this kind of speaks to that too, is that people are afraid to take that moment to stop and to, absorb that compliment or to trust what the other person is saying and not want to burden other people. And we really have gravitated more towards an isolated society, which is really very sad. And again, the suicide rates are increasing, and we're seeing that those numbers just everywhere right now. And with the isolation and the loneliness, we're not really in touch with other people, and the importance of reaching out and just knowing that the other people care. And that's an important message for all of us. I struggle with that. I was talking to someone today and I was like, I didn't want to, I don't want to burden you with anything. And then I'm like, listening to, and the feedback to that is, really? You're not burdening me. Like, if I had called you with this question, what would have your response been? And I kind of took a minute. I was like, I guess personally, I probably would have been insulted if someone had thought they didn't want to burden me with something, right? But here I am doing the same thing, and I know better. I did this for a living.
You would never want to be that person that somebody thinks, well, I'm not going to ask them because I don't want to burden them. And I'm not talking about even the serious stuff we're here, discussing. Yeah. I'm just talking about anything.
Anything, right?
Yeah. Why would you ever want to be that person? Because they don't exist. It's in our minds.
Right. Yes. And I do that a lot with my clients. I'll have that conversation. Well, if you were in that situation, that whole perspective taking and looking at it from and reframing and all of the things that we do in therapy. But I think those of us who do this for a living, we forget to do it for ourselves. And we forget that we also need the self-care. We forget that there are people out there, and it's okay for us to let down our guard. It's okay for us to extend ourselves and let somebody in to help us. And we just have to, if we're not good to ourselves, how do we expect other people to be good to us?
Well, you said something a moment ago that really resonates, in that we don't know, we isolate so we don't know others as well. But even though we're isolating now more, especially COVID, all that, we don't know us. That's the other challenge. You got to get to know you. Me,
Absolutely. And, throughout COVID, a lot of changes. People lost jobs, changed careers. The divorce rate was astronomical. The birth rate, my God, there are children coming out everywhere during COVID. People were having babies, and so many changes in society. And then getting back, and I know that we have been post-COVID for a long time. However, we are still in the effects of it. There are fears, there were losses, there were people who lost jobs, lost houses, lost family members. They just had to just reinvent themselves in so many different ways. So your point is so valid, Steve. We got to take them a moment to just step back and get to know who we are as individuals, and because we're important. We're an important element. We're an important part of all of this.
Totally. And it's a cliche, but unless you know and love yourself, you can't properly give that to others. And I'm not talking about, close family personal relationships only, everything. And by the way, everything the way we pilot. Sherri Ann, what's the best way if somebody's going through some challenges, maybe want somebody to talk to? What's your suggestions?
So there's suicide hotlines that you can Google it. I don't have any of the numbers off the top of my head. Obviously, 911 is going to be your first phone call if you know of somebody that needs to have a well check or is suicidal. There are all kinds of suicide hotlines out there that you can call a friend. Call your therapist. We're always available. There's mobile crisis. I don't know about states outside of Massachusetts, but I know like within Massachusetts we have mobile crisis that's available to us in addition to emergency mental health hospitals that can help with things like that. Calling our local police department. And get yourself in therapy if you're feeling really overwhelmed or you're having any of these thoughts that we talked about today, about wanting to sacrifice yourself or things just being too hard and not really knowing what to do next. Reach out and get some help, because my God, can you imagine if you can just turn that around and then be that spokesperson for somebody else? And having this like Matt Griffin is talking about, and bringing it just full circle where he was in that lowest point of his life, and then he's writing a book and doing a podcast to help other people.
The way it should be, and it is.
Yeah,
it really
is.
There are many that are here to listen and help, and you're never burdened. And
never.
In closing, what was that thing that his friend said to him? Today's a good day.
Oh, if today's a good day to die, tomorrow, so is tomorrow.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. It's deep stuff, but it needs to be discussed, Sherri Ann. I appreciate it.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll catch up soon. We'll be right back.
All right. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.